Hi Gina.
Hi Ione, hi everyone. I'm Gina, the senior editor of Polyester.
And I'm Ione, the founding editor-in-chief of Polyester, and this is the Polyester Podcast, a feminist pop culture podcast dissecting the discourse on a weekly basis.
Please make sure to like, rate, subscribe and review. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to our membership platform for exclusive podcast-centered perks. We're offering exclusive video episodes, secret mini episodes, and even episodes centered on what you want us to talk about across different tier options. Go check it out at the link in our description. Do we have any reviews, Ione?
We do. This is 5 stars from Carly23R in the UK. Love it. The only podcast hosts I wanted to hear analyse that Sabrina Carpenter album cover.
Thank you, Carly.
And then on Spotify, we have Catherine B, who, this is about last week's episode, says, one of the best episodes I've heard, so funny and relatable, such a good perspective on something that's been discussed for years. I'm an English listener living in Canada, and your podcast helps me keep up and feel connected to home. Love your pod so much.
Oh, thank you.
And then we have Fiatra, also on Spotify, says, agree with Ione that it's not fair on guys who are genuinely into these things or experimenting with gender, and it just gives homophobia and gender essentialism. Reminds me of people posting TikToks lately, being annoyed that there's men at Addison Rae concerts. Like, do they know gay guys exist? Lamau. True.
I would expect there to be only men.
Only gay men.
Only
Yeah, no, I
gay
think
men
that's
at
people
Addison Rae.
misunderstanding the Addison Rae fan base, if anything else.
Honestly.
What are we talking about today, Gina?
We're talking about Cumtown.
Not just
We're talking about
Cumtown.
how the boys from Cumtown have become leftist icons in their own right. We're talking about the new wave of what is being called dark woke.
And don't know what my and is. I guess post we're talking about like a post Red Scare world.
Yeah, Red Scare dead in the water.
Not that I'm sure it's still going.
Well, I do believe it is still going, but I just don't think it has the cultural relevancy that they used to hold. And like obvious that the men who were involved in like that Dime Square universe are trying to move away from being part of that as well. Just
in case we're talking in riddles, would you like to explain what the fuck we're talking about?
Okay, so Cumtown used to be a podcast. It ended this year, or maybe like the end of last year, but it was 3 men who were on it, and it used to be like quite controversial. Sometimes it would have like really left socialist leaning politics. They were like massive fans of Bernie Sanders, for example, and really campaigned for him, but they often just like interspliced episodes with like saying the R slur, saying the T slur, saying every slur that you can think of, saying really like controversial jokes about like sexual assault, stuff like that. So they're trying to like slice it together. And also similarly to Red Scare, I think that kind of started as like an ironic point of view, and then kind of led, as it got popular, became something that they believed they had the right to do themselves. It was made up of 3 guys. So one of them was Adam Friedland, who now has his own talk show that went viral recently, which is like a YouTube talk show where he has loads of different guests. Who's the one he had this week?
Taylor Lorenz.
Exactly, like he gets those kind of like contentious figures on.
It's very like timely online people.
Exactly. And then the other one is called Stavros Halkias. He's also got his own podcast now, which is called Stavy's World. He's just gone viral this week for challenging a guest that he had on, who's a comedian, a cis female comedian, who's being like very transphobic on, and is known for being a transphobic comedian, but he was like challenging her on that. So the final one is a guy called Nick Mullen. He hasn't gone viral yet for being left, but I wouldn't be surprised if within the next week he does something courageously leftist, and everyone's patting him on the back like, wow, look at this guy who's actually not an evil monster like we all had assumed that these guys were just like pranksters, the South Park of Gen Z, when they're not even Gen Z.
They're all old.
Adam Friedland is 38.
No, we're in our 30s too.
Old as fuck.
No, but isn't they too old to be saying like the R word?
Well,
they're old enough to know better.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? People who think that they can hold... They're literally probably the same age as the South Park men.
South Park's like 25 years old, isn't it?
Yeah, but they started it when they were 4. But No, they're just like, yeah, you're right. They're of the age that they should know better. And I think like it's really funny people being like, oh, it's really courageous that they've like changed their opinion on a public platform and like we should be seeing more of that. It's like, well, they got famous off the back of being right-leaning and like being comfortably doing that, and also were 35 at the time.
I think like it's worth flagging though that I guess they said that what they were doing wasn't political, so maybe instead of like binarying these things up as left or right, it's like they were doing bigoted things. Like they probably still consider themselves leftists, but they were doing offensive things.
Yeah, because at the time it was kind of called the dirtbag left.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like trying to do this post-racial, post-feminist, post-like anything sarcastic. Anything can be a joke and nothing's like off the table for being laughed at. And by laughing at it, we're like, don't know, whatever the train of thought is there.
Well, a lot of this kind of research is talking about Cumtown as if it was like kind of a absurdist, postmodern piece of comedy that was like funny because it was like pointing out how absurd everything was that was going on around them.
But I think that they were taking the wrong things to find absurd.
What do you mean?
Like they were making like BLM jokes and being like, this is corny, this is like something that we can laugh at, like the way that people act around these movements.
Yeah, I get you. But I think it's just something that we talk about all the time, in that like people got really annoyed with the earnestness of like social justice movements. And then, but also I think that something, so there's a bit in the research where it's like the end of Cumtown, an Ode to Horrible podcast that's brilliant by Haytham Nawaz in Brock Press. And a quote from it says, "The podcast was proof that comedy can be expressly offensive and raunchy, but that the sole point of testing the waters with offensive content was to make people laugh. Their being intentionally offensive had no intended political valence. Unlike those in the Rogan sphere, this was one of the ways they made you laugh while not feeling guilty about laughing at the things you absolutely could not bring up at work." What? Like,
you tell me, brother.
Hey, what? It's like, why are you laughing if something's... Is it like, I guess you can like try and pull it out as a joke. It's like, oh, why are you laughing? Are you laughing because you're saying something naughty? Like, are you a child and you've said a swear word with your mates? Your mum's like, you shouldn't swear. But there's this bit when I went to Patty Harrison's Soho Theatre show and she did about this. And it was like basically saying the exact same thing. It was like this whole bit where she was doing a podcast and someone thought that someone, like, it was like 4 characters on stage, right? One of the characters thought that the host of the podcast called them the R word. And then they're like, no, I would never say that in a place that wasn't smoking weed with my friends at someone's house. And it's like, what? Like, I think it's so, like, you can talk about how maybe sometimes people do say these things, like, think they're funny or think it's, like, naughty. But how is that funny?
Yeah, there's a bit in the research where there's an article from Vox by Anna North and Jeff Steinway, which is called "Listen to What Socialist Women Are Saying About Misogyny on the Left." And there was a quote in it from Gia Tolentino that said, people are trying to reclaim vulgarity from the Trumps and like things need to like not be politically correct anymore. We need to like have that like profaneness back in the left. That's like what people are missing. And I was like, I am so violently vulgar every single day of my life. Without offending anyone.
Well, I think this is part of the difference between, for example, Patty Harrison and like the Cumtown boys when they were on Cumtown, is that like if you are someone that like is marginalized through experience and like you can speak to experiences and use like whether it's slurs or like disgusting things or like body horror to speak to those experiences, like be vulgar. Like no one's saying that you should like not swear or do any of those things, but it's more that like white straight men who don't have anything else, like any other strings to their bow in terms of marginalisation. Like, and Stavros says this in his GQ interview. It's like, you have no experience to back up like any of these things you're saying. Like, if you're just saying that BLM is corny, you're racist. Like, because like the whole world is set up for you. Like, there's no humour to be found in like trying to invert that or whatever. Anyway, we talked about them for ages. Why are they good now?
Oh, I had another thing to say.
Oh, okay, make it short and sweet.
Well, what I thought, what brought to mind in the Stavros interview was him talking about like, oh, I used to be an incel, but I grew out of it because there wasn't really that rhetoric around me, like when he was young. And I was thinking like that's kind of like what the incel movement has really like. What I think the incel movement has really played on is to make white cis men feel like they're the most marginalised of all.
Or even just a bit marginalised.
Which makes them think that they've got the right to do and say all these things. Like, that's why they feel bolstered to do it. Because they've seen marginalised people do that in their comedy or their art for years. And they're like, well, I'm also marginalised, so I'm allowed to do it.
So why are they good now?
Adam Friedland is good now. And this is why they're good now. Adam Friedland, a few weeks ago, had the governor for Harlem and another part of New York, can't remember off the top of my head, sorry, on the show. He's a man who's been really proudly Zionist. And I think when his team booked him on for the Adam Friedland show, obviously Adam is Jewish and also courts controversy. And I think probably has been like a Zionist in the past. I think he mentioned that as well.
Well, I think he said he grew up with Zionism.
He booked the show to try and further his agenda, the governor. And when he got on, Adam Friedland kind of had this really like emotional, personal moment where he talks about how he grew up really believing in Israel and like how he's not too far away from Holocaust survivors, and kind of like how the Zionist community phrased the need for Israel was through the lens of, if there is no Israel, there'll be another Holocaust. And then he's like talking to this governor and he's like, but there is another Holocaust happening right now, and it's because of Israel. And I think that's what so many Jewish people are struggling to get their heads around. And he's just kind of like having this really revelatory moment in real time, talking to this guy who's like continually shooting him down, just being really, really horrible to him. And then off the back of that, and he's still put it out as part of the show, and there's like a hot mic moment at the end where the governor's like, you've tried to have a gotcha here with me, I really don't appreciate it. And Adam Friedland's like, no, we talked about the topic that you brought to the table and I just had an honest reaction to it. And the guy's like, no, you're trying to catch me out, that's like what all people who are anti-Israel are doing. And he was like, no, that's not what happened. Obviously the episode got released, it went viral, and everyone was like, oh, Adam Friedland's actually like taking a step back from Cumtown as being like not courting controversy, but like being very what's the word?
Reactionary.
No, I think he's like come back to be authentic. Like he's being his really like having like really authentic reactions to stuff rather than trying to like make a joke out of stuff.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about last week with like performance of selves. Like loads of the ways people talk about the Cumtown podcast in this research is that like, oh, it was basically like meta commentary and performance, which just comes back to the quote from last week about like, even if you're performing, ironically it's still performance and like whatever. And then so we've already covered Stavros being on his podcast calling out the trans girl, not that, calling out the TAF girl. And then he's also been in GQ. So GQ have done their like, is it the Men of the Year issue or is it different?
It's like exploring American masculinity.
And they've done Glenn Powell with like in loads of hyper-real
sick ass shoot.
Yeah, like with fake muscles and in different like stereotypes. And they've done Stavros like fat guy on the beach. And then they've done loads of other people as well. Any highlights from the interview?
Just that I thought the incel thing was really cool and interesting.
Cool? Sorry.
What? I thought it was really cool for him to talk about
Sorry,
that.
have an earnest moment.
I thought it was
sorry,
really
sorry,
cool.
sorry.
And I also liked what he was talking about. And you were like, Gina, you love this. When he's talking about being like a fat man and having to be a funny fat man to survive.
Well, and I do agree with that, but then so like there's this guy, we spoke about his writing before on the podcast. Dean Kissick has written a piece. So like obviously this is all tied into like the Dime Square scene, whether there is a scene, whether there isn't a scene, etc, etc, etc. But something that I think is interesting is take Dime Square take like Dirtbag left Dime Square at face value as these like reactionaries and people that like rally against identity politics and particularly identity politics in the creative arts. And Dean's article is called The Dime Square Spiral. It's in Spike, and his writing is very hit or miss. Anyway, he said, all this reflects broader shift in cultural production that took place in the 2010s. The way we lived online could no longer be separated from culture, and it began to overwhelm the rest of culture. People everywhere are making their lives into content, and this is simply the New York art house version of that for a cultural moment driven by podcasts and more recently newsletters. And then that was actually the wrong quote. And then he goes on to say, Your personal history or trauma has become a key part of what gives value to your self-expression, and this contemporary obsession with the identity of the artist is not that different from the overblown fascination with the narcissistic downtown personality. So it's like all these dirtbag left people thought they were above identity politics, were above like, oh, you're the first queer person to like go for a walk outside. Oh, you're the first queer person to like be nominated for this literary prize. You're the first woman to like have a pet dog and ride a bike. But now Stavros is doing it, sorry. Like, it's been like, my experience as a fat man has shaped me into this. It's like,
well, Adam's doing it as well, arguably.
Seems as though, yeah, and Adam with like being Jewish, it's like, oh, seems as though maybe our identities are important to who we are and do somewhat shape us as people. Who would have thought?
And influence our artistic outputs.
Who would have thought?
Who would have said?
Who's woke nonsense now?
Well, that's the thing. I think these boys have had this like light bulb moment, like, oh, we're not actually post anything. Everything is the worst it's ever been.
I don't know. Let's go to a break and we can come back to that.
Hello, dearest listener. This episode of the Polyester Podcast is brought to you by Squarespace, the website hosting and business platform that has been a one-stop shop for us for everything digital over the years.
Squarespace is, and always has been, mega easy to use. The site builder has multiple templates for creating web pages, and they're also easily customizable and intuitive to use that we've always been able to bring any idea to life using the platform.
It's really helped us turn our passion project into a fully realised business, taking care of the more complicated aspects of web development like SEO, managing workflows, and taking payments with integrations already built into the platform.
Squarespace makes that stuff so simple so that we can really focus on the finer details of design, which Squarespace champions as part of their ethos.
We couldn't recommend Squarespace enough, and you can use our code polyester10 for a 10% discount right now. Plus, get a 14-day free trial to try the product before taking on the subscription.
We hope you like it as much as we do, and as always, thanks for listening.
We're back from the break.
So, no, okay, fine. What I was saying, and what I think is really interesting, right? So everyone was so obsessed with like Times Square and the dirtbag left and it being kind of like revelatory and culture like through COVID and all of this stuff. What it seems to have borne, like what the end result is, and I feel like these two things have like the two main things that have become most famous that have come out of like the Times Square scene is Red Scare and Cumtown, arguably, yeah. Like obviously, and the Dare. Who fucking cares? He never says
maybe
anything.
2 years ago.
Like if you said those three things, the biggest group of people would know who those three things were, yeah? The Cumtown men have seemed to have like are trying to make inroads into like mainstream media and into like fame and like Hollywood and all of these other things. The Red Scare girls seem like divided. Like Anna seems to be becoming more of a Nazi as each passing day. Dasha also doing the same thing, but really craves like the validation of Hollywood and trying to be an actress. But they've both like gone really different ways about it, and also how wider society has reacted to like people being really impressed by them is to try and become more like them. So this thing called dark woke that has emerged like this year, which isn't really a real thing, like let's just be honest, but it's just something some people on the internet are talking about, where it's like, oh, since Trump's been elected again, we have, you know, Democrats, left-wing people have to like change the approach and have decided that the approach is saying slurs and swearing at people. So everyone's like, also I thought Alexandra, what was her name? Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Like, I thought everyone just agreed she was the cringiest woman on earth, but loads of people are using like this one tweet she did where she like clapped back at someone being like, cry more about it, as like an example of dark woke. And like people tweeting like the response to Charlie Kirk can be like seen as part of this. Like no big politician's done this, but you know, people being like, Jezebel Etsy witches cursed him, haha, they worked. Like basically like gallows humor out of bleak political situations is what dark woke is, or like using the same tactics that Trump has been using back at him. So like citing Gavin Newsom and Trump going at it on Twitter, like citing people saying slurs again, citing people being like, I want to run over a Republican and like cut open their dog, as opposed to just being like, when they go low, we go high, Michelle Obama, like an end of kind of like respectability politics and a more just like, you're all cunts.
Yeah, we're all rolling around in the mud.
But surely, if that was actually going to gain any like precedence or interest, the Cumtown boys would have stood their ground and would have become like more like this. But instead, they've completely retracted into the acceptability, like into the Overton window of acceptability, to become enveloped in the media, mainstream media.
Well, yeah, that's what Stavros is just gonna do what he wants to do to be famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think Dark Woke A, the worst name I've ever heard for anything. Ooh, dark. Join the dark side, we have cookies. And then I also think, like, it's just one of, like, the worst people you'd see online arguing with, like, right-leaning people online. Like, it'll be, like, someone's being, like, violently racist, and then they'll be like, what, are you triggered, snowflake? You can't be around other communities? And it's like, what does that actually do for anyone?
Wait, which is which?
What do you mean?
Like, which person is which in this situation?
Well, the racist person is the one who has right-leaning beliefs. And the person who's trying to make a joke about being triggered is now the person with the left-leaning beliefs.
Right.
Because they're trying to use their same language back at them. But all of it just reads as very cringe.
Immature.
And the person, they think they're like rage baiting the right, but the right are reactionary no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Like they've been reactionary the whole time to even people being like very, very politically correct. So I think like meeting them at that level.
I mean, that's what they were reacting to. Like.
Well, exactly. So like even meeting them at that level isn't going to like make them be like, oh, whoa, actually, let's think about this.
And what I thought was interesting as well in the research was this article, Escape from Downing Square by Will Harrison for The Baffler. And he says, if fascism comes to America, we'll watch it on TV like we do everything else. There'll still be MasterCard commercials too, but they probably won't feature gay interracial couples anymore. I believe it was John Dolan who said good art can be honest or something genuinely new. To be new is to transgress. If the last 50 years has taught us anything, cultural transgression of any kind is now impossible under capitalism. And I think like this is what the legacy of like the dirtbag left will be, more than like changing the way the left operates or like doing anything actually politically. It's like we are like American politics have never been more tied with like capitalism and commerce, like considering who the president is, and it's all just like a big wheel to make money.
Well, I also think it's
and yeah, these people just, you know, hand out, like put down their reactionary counterparts to be folded into a way they can make more money.
And I also think it goes into it explains why those people were being reactionary to begin with, to be like a counterculture, because the main culture during the last wave of feminism got so picked up by capitalism, like to the point that it became so cloying, or at least cloying to some people, or like such like a dried out meaning of a message like body positivity, that the reactionary version to be transgressive to that was to be those men.
But then, haha, look at them now. It's happened to them now, hasn't it? So now they're swinging back to woke.
But capitalism made that feminism so corny and made it so...
Which is what has made Dime Square corny, because there's Dime Square H&M t-shirts and like everyone's embarrassing, and like arguably Charlie XCX made it embarrassing too with Brat. Like
anything that gets commodified is embarrassing,
and everything gets commodified, so like have fun.
Yeah, and no,
don't
like,
be racist and stop saying the R word,
and
please.
It also just means that like your sense of understanding the world is so like limited.
It's so like, flimsy as well. Like
yeah.
If you're only chasing coolness, like coolness is an unattainable, always moving goalpost in like that can only be attained through self-belief.
Not just that, but I think like you're taking not say H&M again, but H&M's version of feminism being like, that's what all feminism is anymore. Like feminism is dead. It's like, no, you don't understand what's actually happening on the ground for people who are like marginalized, like what actually like the depths of those movements mean, because you're taking it at a surface level, because you're acting on a surface level.
Because all these people are just always thinking about the brands.
Yeah, they're always thinking of like how to be a step ahead.
A step ahead of what? Exactly.
You tell me, brother.
But overall, I think it is interesting. And also, like, I'm not going to say, oh, it's a bad thing that Adam Friedland is suddenly, like, standing up for Palestine. Oh, it's a bad thing that like Stavros finally like, you know, is not letting transphobia go down on his podcast. It's like, these are all net good, but it's like, what are they going to do when the pendulum swings back? Or are they going to be so like folded into the establishment at that point? And I think specifically with Adam Friedland, it's like a really interesting time that his talk show is becoming so popular at a time when obviously Colbert is being closed and like everyone's like, late night's dead in America, which is like a culture we've never really had in the UK, so but is really important to like the American media ecosystem. Obviously everyone talks about like, oh, podcasts are the new talk show, this is the new talk show, but it seems like Adam Friedland is like, to my like limited viewing, a perfect like stand-in for what the future of late night could look like, and like how this transfers to the internet and how this can actually dominate the mainstream media. Because even that clip, I showed Gina a clip earlier of Martin Short on Fallon, and like they're making what they think are edgelord jokes. They're like, oh, Fallon, you're in the Epstein files. It's like they're all just doing the same thing to a different audience,
to a different generation.
Yeah. What?
I also think like we're way too forgiving of them because they're men. We're like, oh, they weren't marginalised, they don't understand. And like, if like say Dasha or Anna turned around and did like one like really similar thing on their podcast, like with a guest or something, it just wouldn't reach like the level of like acclaim and like backslapping that them two have gotten.
Well, I think this is vaguely what Dasha tried to do with Succession.
What?
Like going on it. Like I think she was trying to like re-facilitate her image and like make herself be less edgy and more like, no, I get it too, like I'm also criticizing these people, but it didn't work.
No, it fell so flat because she carried on doing the podcast at the same time being a little bastard. Anyway, if you want a content strategy from me, Dasha and Anna,
no, don't. We'll end up on the I really don't want to be on the Red Scare subreddit again.
Not again, bro.
Darkest days of my life. We've really gone in for the bat of horrible subjects that get us in shit these past few weeks.
Which is why you should be defending us in the reviews.
But yeah, exactly. Let's just end it there, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've said enough.
I think we said too much.
I said all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Ione.
Thank you, Rob, for the excellent research this week. Thank you, Olivia, for the edit. And thank you to everyone for listening.
I love you.
I love you. We'll see you next week. Bye.